So, Mark and Patricia McCloskeys, aka Ken and Karen, they spoke at the RNC yesterday, and this is what they had to say about Donald Trump.
At the home of Mark and Patricia McCloskeys.
The husband and wife attorneys charged with pointing guns at protesters.
They were simply trying to protect their home.
Good evening, America. We are Mark and Patty McCloskey. We're speaking to you tonight from St. Louis, Missouri, where just weeks ago you may have seen us defending our home as a mob of protesters descended on our neighborhood.
America is such a great country that not only do you have the right to own a gun and use it to defend yourself, but thousands of Americans will offer you free advice on how to use it. At least that's what we experienced. What you saw happen to us could just as easily happen to any of you who are watching from quiet neighborhoods around our country. And that's what we want to speak to you about tonight.
That's exactly right. Whether it's the defunding of police, ending cash bail so criminals can be released back out on the streets the same day to riot again, or encouraging anarchy and chaos on our streets, it seems as if the Democrats no longer view the government's job as protecting honest citizens from criminals, but rather protecting criminals from honest citizens. Not a single person in the out-of-control mob you saw at our house was charged with a crime. But you know who was? We were. They've actually charged us with felonies for daring to defend our home. On top of that, consider this. The Marxist liberal activist leading the mob to our neighborhood stood outside our home with a bullhorn screaming, "You can't stop the revolution." Just weeks later, that same Marxist activist won the Democrat nomination to hold a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. In the city of St. Louis, that's the same as winning the general election. That Marxist revolutionary is now going to be the congresswoman from the 1st District of Missouri. These radicals are not content with marching in the streets. They want to walk the halls of Congress. They want to take over. They want power. This is Joe Biden's party. These are the people who will be in charge of your future and the future of your children.
They're not satisfied with spreading the chaos and violence into our communities. They want to abolish the suburbs altogether by ending single-family home zoning. This forced rezoning would bring crime, lawlessness, and low-quality apartments into now thriving suburban neighborhoods. President Trump smartly ended this government overreach, but Joe Biden wants to bring it back. These are the policies that are coming to a neighborhood near you. So make no mistake, no matter where you live, your family will not be safe in the radical Democrats' America.
At this moment in history, if you stand up for yourself and for the values our country was founded on, the mob, spurred on by their allies in the media, will try to destroy you. You've seen us on your TV screens and Twitter feeds. You know that we're not the kind of people who back down. Thankfully, neither is Donald Trump. President Trump will defend the God-given right of every American to protect their homes and their families. But more than that, Trump's vision for America is a country where you have an opportunity to work hard and build the life you dream of with a job you love, with your children being educated in great schools, in a community where your family can play in the backyard without fear, worship in a church without shame, and express your beliefs without retribution. Trump brought us the greatest economy our country had ever seen. The Democrats have brought us nothing but destruction.
When we don't have basic safety and security in our communities, we'll never be free to build a brighter future for ourselves, for our children, or for our country. That's what's at stake in this election, and that's why we must re-elect Donald Trump. God bless you, God bless the President,
and God bless these United States.
I love how they both said God bless these United States in unison. You could tell that was practiced. Now, I definitely didn't expect their speech to be the way it was. I expected him to go harder on the Second Amendment and why it's so important. But it looks like all the guests on the RNC are just there to praise the president on shit that he hasn't done. They say Trump is protecting the Second Amendment. Donald Trump banned bump stocks. He said after the Parkland shooting that the government should be able to take your guns without due process. So he's just like Joe Biden. He wants red flag laws. That shouldn't be a Republican stance, but ever since Donald Trump has said it, you guys have defended it. So I don't know. I was like, it's a long day in hell before conservatives defend gun control, but apparently a lot of them have been doing it for Trump. He said government protects criminals. You're right. The government does protect criminals. Those criminals are the ones in uniform, the ones that, abuse their power, the ones that put their knees on people's necks, the ones that kill people in unconstitutional raids, the ones that have gang mentalities and hide evidence for their fellow officers, or stick up for their fellow officers even though they're in the wrong. Big Daddy government within itself is criminals. They're a bunch of criminals. They're a bunch of pedophiles. They're a bunch of psychopaths. We're talking about some very disgusting people here. So government does protect criminals because government is filled with criminals. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-cop. I believe there are good cops. I believe there are bad cops. I also believe that there are also bad people within the riots and the looting. I don't think we should be rioting or looting. But here's the thing. These people like Mark and Patricia McCloskeys, they're cheerleaders, okay? They talk all this mess about the Second Amendment, yet they're literally shilling for some guy who doesn't even believe they should have guns if suspected of a crime, without due process. So I'm flabbergasted by it. Now, as far as their situation, in general, I do agree that they had every right to defend themselves. I don't know why those people went on their property. I really don't. In their state, they have the castle doctrine. They did have the castle doctrine, which basically means your castle is your home and you can use any type of force you want, including lethal force, to get trespassers and people who you don't want on your property off your property. Now, whether you agree with that or not, I personally agree with that law. But whether you agree or disagree or not, that was the law. So they had every right to do what they did. Although, like I said in the last video, Patricia McCloskeys putting her finger on the trigger, that was insane. She should have never done that. That's crazy, and she's lucky that she didn't hurt anybody or got anybody killed. But like I said, it's their right. Said the greatest economy under Trump. One, it's not the greatest economy anymore because of the pandemic, because he decided to wait. Second of all, it wasn't a great economy. Wages have been stagnant since the 80s. So, yeah, he created millions of jobs, but those jobs mean shit when they're not paying the bills and when you can't afford a one-bedroom apartment. You can't afford one-bedroom apartment in any state, regardless of working 40 hours. And in some states, you have to work 40 an extra 40 hours or more. We're talking about over 80 hours. So it's not the greatest economy. 8 out of 10 people are living paycheck to paycheck, probably more now. Half of Americans were making $30,000 or less a year. So, this idea of the greatest economy, I mean, just because you make millions of jobs doesn't mean anything. The unemployment rate is also not a good factor because there are so many things to take into consideration. Like who's looking for work, how many hours are they working? There's just so many factors. So the unemployment rate is not a really great determination of how the economy is doing. And then you talk about the stock market being a success. Okay, well, over 80% of the stock market is owned by the rich. So that's irrelevant. I mean, that's a factor of how the rich is doing. So the greatest economy, my ass. Yeah, I honestly, I mean, I should have expected this, but I give people the benefit of the doubt too much, I guess. But these people really have no idea who they're voting for, because Donald Trump is Donald Trump does not speak for American values. Him and Joe Biden do not speak for American values. They're both authoritarians. They're both Republicans. So, the Democrats and the Republicans have a lot to do with the current situation at hand. They're both working together. And it truly disheartens me to see everybody being so divisive right now, going after each other, when in actual reality, the only people who you should be going after are the billionaire class and the government. The government and the corporations violate our rights on an everyday basis. We don't have real capitalism right now. We have feudalism. We have wage slavery. We have the government spying on us. We have the government killing people unlawfully. Daniel Shaver, Breonna Taylor, Eric Gardner, Khalif Browder. You know, and these are just some cases. We shouldn't just be talking. We should stop mentioning race, man, because this race is an issue, but we have to look at the bigger picture at hand, guys. The powers that be know exactly what the hell they're doing, and we're playing right into their game right now. They are purposely putting us against each other. You know what fear is? You know what makes them scared? You know what really makes them scared? You know what would make them scared? If they saw a bunch of BLM protesters and a bunch of MAGA supporters coming together and holding hands and saying, we're about to burn this shit down if you don't give us what we need. End the wars. Medicare for all. End all this illegal spying. End the drug war. Shrink government massively. And at this point, we really don't have time to settle for less or ask. We need to start demanding, because this whole system is going to collapse on itself before you know it.